Hi, Dan Alasso here again with History for Today. And this morning I want to begin talking about reading notes. The thing about transferring the highlights that you make in books into reading notes is it can be a lot of work, especially if you found a good source of material with a lot of content in it. As excited as we may be with this type of discovery, it can be disconcerting. Speaking from personal experience, I have found it difficult in the last several weeks, for example, getting all of my thoughts on Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book Antifragile into my Obsidian notes. This was not at all because I didn't like the book. On the contrary, I liked it well enough that I quickly got and read The Black Swan and Fooled by Randomness and Skin in the Game. The danger for me with books of this type is that I get so excited about the ideas in them that I want to run ahead and I want to get more as quickly as possible. So I either read more books by the same authors or I read the author's sources after mining the footnotes or endnotes or bibliography. And as I'm doing this, I'm pretty confident that I have understood the author's point. So it may seem less pressing to me to work it out in writing, which incidentally is one of the benefits of taking notes on content that you haven't quite decided what you think about it, because that helps you formulate your ideas. But in any case, the problem is that this sense of understanding that I'm getting right now from immersion in these ideas about this book that I'm excited about is not permanent. Right now, I could probably speak pretty intelligently about Antifragile, explaining both what I agree with and the things that I find a little bit problematic, using examples right from the text. A couple of years from now, however, I'm unlikely to be able to slip right back into this same level of engagement without a substantial reread of the book. And this is where my notes will be invaluable. Although there may be additional things that I might actually notice and new insights that I might gain by rereading the original text, I can at least save the state that I'm in right now with the book by taking some time to record all of my notes. And this is time-consuming. I've just begun writing about the third section of Antifragile, and I've already written about 3,500 words. Now, I don't write this much about every book that I read, but as I said, I got a lot out of this one. And if these reading notes end up running over 5,000 words, which is pretty likely, they'll probably be the source of a bunch of permanent notes, probably way more than I typically get out of a single book. I know it will be worthwhile, but it can still be a chore getting all of this down in the document. And in addition to the time that it takes, there's that additional element of being inside the ideas of the text right now. Although I'm writing these notes for myself, I want to remember to write them for a me that may have forgotten some of the details. The sea gets deeper as you go into it, Taleb says, paraphrasing a Venetian proverb. My goal with these notes is to be able to use them to step back more or less directly from the shore into the deep waters. But I need to make sure that I'll be able to swim in those waters once I jump in. I used a lot of my downtime last week waiting in airports to input a big chunk of notes about this book. I'm not done yet, so I'm going to have to allocate some more hours to this over the coming week or so. I find that it's kind of important to me not to let myself get too far ahead of my note-taking in my reading. At a certain stage, all of the content in the queue can become kind of overwhelming. To restate it briefly, my process is typically that I listen to an audiobook version of a title if it's available in that format, and then I highlight a print or a Kindle copy. I used to feel a little bit guilty about buying texts in multiple formats, but now I believe that the content that I'm getting out of them is valuable enough that it makes sense for me to maximize the efficiency and the effectiveness of getting that content out. I listen at somewhere between 1.5 and 2.0 speed, so sometimes I listen more than once. Often I'll run the audio again, sometimes at an even quicker rate while I'm highlighting, just to keep me in the zone. In the past, I've tended to highlight only keywords so that I can make notes about them when I return. Lately, I've begun highlighting some entire statements if I want Readwise to find them and add them to my retrieval list. And I'll say more about that in another video. When I make my reading notes, I try to paraphrase. If I do quote the author, I make sure to explain and interpret and contextualize the quote. I found that one of the most difficult things for me to understand when I return to notes after a long time away is a naked quote that may no longer be as meaningful to me as when I first ran across it in the reading. Sometimes things are just less exciting after the initial moment. So it is okay to not transfer some highlights into reading notes. But I don't want a valuable insight to be lost just because I failed to remind myself what it means and why it attracted my attention in the first place. I'll return to reading notes again with some more examples from other texts that I didn't do quite as much note-taking with. But I thought it might be interesting to mention one that hasn't exactly been giving me trouble, but that I've found a little bit challenging lately. So I hope people found that a little bit interesting. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you again next time.